Hi, welcome to my How to Buy a Home series. In this episode, I'm going to be focusing on a particular document that we give to you as home buyers at the outset of a working relationship. It's called a brokerage disclosure to buyer. So in this episode, I'm going to be covering this, explaining some of the pertinent details so that you get an understanding of what this form is for. And when you sign it, you understand that it is simply a disclosure. It's not an obligation for you to work with me or any other real estate agent. It's simply to inform you as a member of the public, a consumer, as to what roles that we can serve you in. I'll go ahead and get started at the top here. And it says different brokerage relationships are available, which include seller agency, buyer agency, or transaction brokerage. Now, since this video focuses on you as a prospective home buyer, I'm going to focus primarily on the buyer agency or transaction brokerage roles. Now I'll scroll down here so you can see these definitions more clearly. There is a paragraph respective to each role that we can serve you in. And again, this is a document that we give to you up front. It's mandated that we do so that you understand, stepping into a real estate transaction, what my responsibilities are to you as a consumer. So I'll start here with the transaction broker and read this paragraph to you. It states, a transaction broker assists the buyer or seller or both throughout a real estate transaction by performing terms of any written or oral agreement, fully informing the parties, presenting all offers, and assisting the parties with any contracts, including the closing of the transaction, without being an agent or an advocate for any of the parties. A transaction broker must use reasonable skill and care in the performance of any oral or written agreement, and must make the same disclosures as agents about all adverse material facts actually known by the transaction broker concerning a property or a buyer's financial ability to perform the terms of a transaction, and if it's a residential property, whether the buyer intends to occupy the property. No written agreement is required. So that is what a transaction broker is. It's basically a messenger. We facilitate the transactions. We have these, what we call uniform duties, as spelled out here in this paragraph, as to what requirements I have in serving you as a customer, or not a customer, a client in a real estate transaction. So that's what a transaction broker is. Now let's define the other role, that of a buyer's agent. A buyer's agent is a level of service above and beyond that of a transaction broker, which again is a facilitator or messenger. A buyer's agent is actually an advocate and a fiduciary for you as the home buyer. So it provides an extra level of service in addition to those uniform duties described for that of a transaction broker. I'll go ahead and read this paragraph to you. It states, a buyer's agent works solely on behalf of the buyer to promote the interests of the buyer with the utmost good faith, loyalty, and fidelity. The agent negotiates on behalf of and acts as an advocate for the buyer. The buyer's agent must disclose to potential sellers all adverse material facts actually known by the buyer's agent, including the buyer's financial ability to perform the terms of the transaction, and if a residential property, whether the buyer intends to occupy the property. A separate written buyer agency agreement is required, which sets forth the duties and obligations of the broker and the buyer. Now, this buyer agency agreement that's referenced here is something we call the exclusive right to buy contract. It's a separate document. It is an actual legally binding agreement that stipulates the role that I'll serve you in. It also gives you the length of the relationship and describes other parameters related to my service to you as an agent in a real estate transaction. That's a separate video, and that's something that I will always review with potential buyers as we're moving forward in our relationship together, giving you the chance to read it, to consult with an attorney and others, and to make sure that you understand it so that you have eyes wide open going forward. So that is the role of a buyer's agent. Again, it's a level of service that's above and beyond that of a transaction broker, and it requires that buyer agency agreement or the exclusive right to buy contract to be agreed upon and signed by both parties, myself and you as the home buyer. Now let's go ahead and scroll down to the rest of the document, and I'll just review some basics that they have here. This is information that is intended to help you and give you some perspective on the do's and don'ts of my work with you as a real estate broker. So the relationship between broker and buyer, it states, broker and buyer referenced below have not entered into a buyer agency agreement. The working relationship specified below is for a specific property described as, or real estate which substantially meets the following requirements. So we can talk about this if you're looking for a specific property. Perhaps you have an address. We want this home and this home only. And if we can't get this, then we're just not going to buy a house. So we can put very specific information there, or we can describe what you're looking for. So it can be single family home with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a 1/4 acre lot. A lot of times I'll just put a home in northern Colorado and leave it general like that so that we have more flexibility. A lot of times, as you'll probably realize, your initial interests and wants for what you're looking for in a home might change depending on your evaluation of the market. You might even find that you like different towns better than others that you might have initially been interested in. So it just allows for some flexibility there. Now we get to the next section. It says buyer understands that buyer is not liable for broker's acts or omissions that have not been approved, directed, or ratified by buyer. So I am not to do anything that you don't give me permission to do. Because sometimes agents can act on a buyer's behalf without their permission, and it actually harms the buyer in a transaction. Maybe it hurts the negotiation process. You lose out on a deal, or you don't get what you wanted in the deal that you're working with a prospective seller. And if that's the case, that's not your fault. That's my fault. Now, personally, as a professional, the way I work is I review with you your various options. We discuss the pros and cons, and then you get to make the decision about which option you want to choose and how you want to move forward. And I won't move forward unless I have your permission. So that, again, this protects you and your interest in purchasing a home, and it also protects me as well. Now we can scroll down to this next section where it says check one box only. I work for a multiple person firm. I work for Location Real Estate. It's a brokerage, and there's multiple agents or brokers within this brokerage. I'll go ahead and read this to you. It says broker referenced below is designated by brokerage firm to serve as broker. If more than one individual is so designated, then references in this document to broker shall include all persons so designated, including substitute or additional brokers. The brokerage relationship exists only with broker and does not extend to the employing broker, brokerage firm, or to any other brokers employed or engaged by brokerage firm who are not so designated. So for example, if I'm working with you as a team, I will put my name as well as any other team member. I'll put their name in there as well so that you know who you're working with, who you can communicate with, and it just gives you full disclosure as to the nature of the relationship and all the parties that are involved. Now I'll scroll down to the next section here. Check one box only. Customer or customer for brokers listings, transaction brokerage for other properties, or transaction brokerage only. Now in this section, I typically check the box for transaction brokerage only. As you recall, that's the default relationship that I serve you in without any discussion about the nature or a relationship that I'll serve you in, or without filling that exclusive right to buy contract. So again, when we first meet, my default relationship or role that I can serve you in is that of a transaction brokerage only. So if we want to move forward with me serving as your agent, we'll have that discussion. We'll review that exclusive right to buy contract. We'll agree to the terms within, and then we'll sign that. And then that makes me officially your agent. But again, upfront, my relationship with you is that of a transaction brokerage only. Now scrolling down here to this next part, it says buyer consents to broker's disclosure of buyer's confidential information to the supervising broker or designee for the purpose of proper supervision, provided such supervising broker or designee does not further disclose such information without the consent of you, the buyer, or use such information to the detriment of the buyer. So this is a paragraph that protects you, it protects your confidentiality, and it means that we are not going to talk about you behind your back, especially in a way that's going to hurt you in negotiations or my conversations with anybody else, especially the agent representing the seller. It also allows me the opportunity to talk with my supervising broker if I need advice, if I need an opinion, and it just helps me to serve you better as a professional real estate broker so that you get your needs met and you get the house that you're looking for. And then we go to this next section here. It says disclosure of settlement service costs. Buyer acknowledges that cost, quality, and extent of service vary between different settlement service providers, including attorneys, lenders, inspectors, and title companies. So basically, this is kind of a buyer beware. When I give you information on local attorneys, if you want to use one, local lenders or inspectors, what have you, I will give you a short list so that you can shop around, get the best price, find somebody that you feel is going to be a good fit for you or you're comfortable with. And then that way you can make the best decision moving forward about what other parties you want involved in the transaction to serve your purposes. But again, this is just kind of a buyer beware that the costs may differ dramatically between service providers. The quality might be different, and the extent of service may be different for each of these settlement service providers. And then we see another statement here. This is not a contract. It is broker's disclosure of broker's working relationship. So this, again, does not obligate you to anything. It just is a way of informing you as a member of the public of the roles that I, as a real estate broker, can serve you in. And then this last little section here is very important. If this is a residential transaction, the following provision applies. And it refers to Megan's Law. And it states, if the presence of a registered sex offender is a matter of concern to buyer, buyer understands that buyer must contact local law enforcement officials regarding obtaining such information. So if this is a matter of concern for you, you are advised that you need to contact local law enforcement, whether it be the sheriff's office or a local municipal law enforcement agency, and contact them. They all have a list of offenders that live within their community on their websites. And so I can direct you. I can tell you where to look for that information, but that's something where you need to do that research for yourself to satisfy your concerns as to whether or not there are registered offenders in the area or in the vicinity of where you want to purchase a home. And then we scroll down here. As you can see, this is just a disclosure. So it's just an acknowledgement that you received this document, and then also an acknowledgement that I provided it to you on such and such a day, and the means of delivery, whether it was a hand delivery, a paper document, or electronic. And so that is the brokerage disclosure to buyer. It's a very basic document. Again, it's written to protect you and to advise you or inform you of the roles that we as real estate brokers can serve you in here in the state of Colorado. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. You can reach me here at 970-313-6706, or wait to the end of this video and you'll see other contact information and ways you can reach me. We'll look forward to working with you soon. Take care.